So the Syrian Civil War. Syria is in the Middle East right here, kind of just above Israel and underneath Turkey. And before the Civil War, they had 23 million people. Wait, the population was 23 million people. But then during the Civil War, they only have 12 million people. And 11 million of them were displaced, so they had to flee the country. And the million that stayed, they didn't have enough money to actually leave, so they have no housing. And they fled to all the surrounding Middle Eastern countries like Jordan, but if they wanted to have like a really good life, they would try to travel to Europe, which is really difficult. But to like get all the supplies they would need $7.7 billion, I believe. And half of the population that were killed were civilians. This is Bashar al-Assad, which is kind of the president of Syria, and he had hundreds of people killed during protesting against him during the, I think, Arab Spring, which was like a protest in Syria. And then he called for the Syrian regime, which is the government military, to attack the civilians. And they went into the civil war, and the allies of him is Russia and Iran. The Civil War started because they had a poor economy, and in 2007, 2010 they had a huge drought, so they weren't able to produce much food. And 1.5 million people moved to the cities, and that created a lot of poverty because there weren't enough jobs for them. And then the Arab Spring started in 2011, so yeah, they're again protesting the government, and they wanted democracy because right now they were oppressed, and this caused an uprising with the regime. So al-Assad had the regime go and bomb everybody while they were protesting, and 95% of the killings are done by the Syrian regime. Poverty, 80% of the people there live below the poverty line, and that was before the Civil War. And typically a person would make $3.84 a day, so they didn't have enough money to actually live. And I think I don't know what that fraction is, but everyone was in poverty really. And unemployment in 2011 was 14.9%. In 2014, it was over half of the country that lived in poverty. And this is like, if they go to another country for refuge, they can't get a job because they're not a citizen. So they have to live in these camps right here that I think the United Nations has for them, or like a specific country has little tents for them. And since 2012, the war has cost $13.1 billion.
The fraction was 4/5.
Okay, 4/5 of people live in poverty. And then so if they try to escape, Syria is like right here. So they would walk, usually. They would walk up to these meeting places and they'd take a boat. And if they really wanted to get to a safer place, they'd go all the way to Europe. So they'd all travel together, or if they really wanted to go to Europe faster, they would take a boat, but a lot of times they end up all drowning because it's not safe and there's so many people on the boat. Women. 1/4 of refugees in Lebanon are women, so they travel there alone. And they can either prostitute themselves for aid or charity to get like the necessities they need. And some of them are forced to marry young, and they can be 12 years old or whatever. And women are often beat for disagreeing with men and about school, work, or whatever, and the people who beat them are their dads, brothers, or husbands. And 8.4 million kids are in need of humanitarian aid, and 26 million don't even go to school, even if they go to another country for refuge, just because there's not enough money for them. And 2.5 million live in the neighboring countries around Syria, so it's not even, so often they don't speak the language of the neighboring country. And they all become like really ill, and they'll get super skinny, and they don't have enough food to eat, and they're forced to do child labor, so that's very dangerous jobs, and they can die usually, or not usually, but sometimes. And then Aleppo, I think, is the capital city of Syria, and the population there is 250,000 and 100,000 of them are kids. And it's actually it used to be a really rich city, so if you were rich, you would live there. And they had a lot of hospitals, schools, and underground shelters for the people, which is really common in the Middle East. But this time the bombs were too strong, and it killed a lot of people. That video. And for every one doctor, there's 7,143 people, so there's not enough to help them. Video.
Tender words for a child that can't find its own. Aleppo is a grim stage with an ever-diminishing cast of survivors, and these are the last of the last. Fatima is the only adult left of 3 families whose apartment block was obliterated by a Russian or Syrian bomb. Fatima comes across a neighbour. The teenage boy with a hat is called Mahmoud. He used to live upstairs. The baby boy he's holding is his little brother, Ismail Mohammed, 1 month old. His face is the only restful thing in this bedroom. But this is the sleep of the dead. Ismail was suffocated in the ruins, and Mahmoud doesn't want to let go of his brother's body. Aleppo is a place where the children have stopped crying. In the corridor, Mahmoud is still cradling his baby brother. War has reversed roles, and the boy now acts like the father that he's lost. A nurse leads in a brother and sister. They go from room to room.
That's good.
We don't know their names. And
that mother, they find the kids, but the kids are dead. And those 2 kids never find their parents. And I think the young boy finally gives up his little brother who died. And then obviously other countries are trying to help them, and the U.S. has bombed targets in 2014, and since then they have, and they spent $500 million for 60 Syrians to learn how to fight, but the program ended when the Americans found out, because that's a lot of money to put towards 60 people. And Middle Eastern countries provide camps, and they try to help them get jobs in other countries, and Europe actually has housing for them. They have Syrian apartments that they can live in. And the Red Cross has given $2.5 million in medical assistance and are still helping them. But relocation is really hard, so you could be told that you're going to move in a month, but then that could just cancel out because that spot got taken already. It takes months for them to even figure out where you can go. And usually they don't know the language of the country, so some of them come here, but they don't know English. And Americans will only give you, so once someone gets here, they'll give you a couple months of help, like they'll give you like money to try to find a job and clothing, but after that you're cut off, so they have no one else to go to. And since some people don't like Muslims, they have a harder time in society, like integrating. That's it.